The Dak deal is done. Now it's time to start a new NFL league year. What do the Cowboys do next? We explore on the Blitz, coming up now. All right, it may be mid-March, but I'm going to kick things off with Happy New Year, everybody. It's time for a new Cowboys year, a new NFL league year. It kicks off on Wednesday. Bill Jones along with Kyle Youmans, and we are here to preview this new year for the Cowboys, which got off to an early start. It was like Christmas last week for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, and Jerry Jones, it looked like he enjoyed being Santa Claus.
Oh, he was enjoying that, and like you said, even though it might have felt like Christmas, there were fireworks going off throughout Dallas Cowboys Nation because they have their franchise quarterback, and there's plenty to go here from the new year. There's some resolutions that need to be set. There's some different things that need to be done, and a little maintenance too. Spring cleaning on the way pretty quickly for this Cowboys roster, but overall it's already a new league year and it feels like one too.
All right, and in fact, contract negotiations with prospective free agents can start on Monday. The league year starts on Wednesday. That's when those contracts become official. But let's talk the big contract, the Dak Prescott contract, the details of that deal. Of course, 4 years, $160 million. And how about Santa Claus, Jerry Jones, signing a check to Dak Prescott for a league record $66 million, as Dak will set a league record with $75 million in salary this first year.
It's pretty unbelievable, and it's a daunting number to look at, but that's kind of the freedom that the Cowboys have whenever it comes to signing bonuses. $66 million signing bonus, that hits right now, and it lowers the cap hit for Dak Prescott in his first year. It'll only be $22.2 million. That's after his franchise tag in 2020 was $31.4. So already a saving of over $9 million just in year one on this Dak contract. So overall, the Cowboys saving a little bit of money, and they're able to shift that money down the road for whenever there's extra salary cap to work with.
Yep, and the TV contract's going to go up, and of course that's one of the beautiful things about the way this deal was structured. Other restructurings for the Cowboys, and this was done when Tyron Smith, as well as Lyle Collins and Zach Martin, signed their contracts over the last few years. It's made for creating cap space, and the Cowboys, by making these moves this past week with these contracts, they open up some salary cap space and can do some business now.
$17 million worth of that cap space, and it's something that the Cowboys really needed because of the salary cap shrinking from 2020 to 2021. $198 million last year. It's now down to $182, so that's $16 million that it's shrunk. This provides a reset button for the Cowboys as these three veteran offensive linemen able to take the restructure. They save $17 million, and now they're actually $9 million under what they had allotted going into free agency last year. So a little bit more flexibility for the Cowboys, and with these three offensive linemen set to return, it's something that I know who Dak Prescott is going to be very excited about because of his new deal, and now with the offense maybe trying to click on all cylinders.
Yeah, when you just see the footage of Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and Lyle Collins and consider how many games those players missed last year, the Cowboys, if those guys are healthy, the Cowboys are already ahead of themselves as far as free agency this year, just with those restructured contracts. All right, we're just getting started on this edition of The Blitz. There is so much to get to over the course of the next half hour. We'll explore the draft and what the Cowboys might do a little over a month from now. But up next, it's Nick Eatman as we break down the Dak deal and the domino effect when we come back.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz is brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Tour AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Tours are available daily. For details, visit attstadium.com/tours. This segment is brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
I just focused on what I could focus on and controlled what I could control, and figured that if I did that, was the best individual that I could be in every aspect, I'll manifest what is out there for me. As I said, I'm a man that stands by faith and lives by that. So a lot of people will say, hey, you gambled and you did this and you did that when you could have taken that. But in this world, you get in everything that you or you get everything out of what you put into it. And I just know from a little boy falling in love with this game to where I am now, and this love has grown further, I've put a lot into it, and I've got a lot more to give.
That was Wednesday here at the Star in Frisco. Welcome back to the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Bill Jones with Nick Eatman. That was Wednesday, but I want to take you back to Monday. That's when the story broke that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys had reached a deal. And there's a guy who was behind the scenes here, right in the studio, as a matter of fact, who saw Dak Prescott before it was announced that the deal was in place. You saw him on Monday. Take us behind the scenes. What Dak reveal anything to you at that time?
Not officially, but but I kind of got the vibe a little bit there. So we basically I found out he was doing something in the studio. He had to film something for I think the Jones family, and so I went down there, stalked him, just waited for him, whatever. I thought maybe I could bump into him, and he wasn't really ready to do an interview or anything like that, but he did say that it was getting close, and he said he's not going anywhere. I'm a Cowboy for life. And he was we're talking about the mannequins that are outside this hallway that have a lot of the old jerseys and former players with the numbers, and I think he kind of made it known that maybe it's time for some new numbers there, number 4. But I asked how he was doing with his rehab, and he did a little dance. He was like, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm good to go." So. He didn't say anything. He just got the sense that something's going to happen sooner than later. I just didn't think it was going to happen that night.
All right. So what is it about Dak Prescott you think that convinced over the last 4 or 5 years convinced Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones that this is the guy they want to invest this kind of money?
Because when you talk about franchise players, we say the franchise tag, but that. Guys that get a franchise tag aren't really the franchise. That's just kind of the technicality and what they put. But Dak Prescott is the franchise of this team right now. You ask the players in the locker room, the top players, the guys on the practice squad, ask the coaches, the quality control coaches, ask the people at the training table that serve lunch, ask the people that he sees. He treats everyone the same.
Ask Nick Eatman.
You can. He is the franchise here. He's the guy. And somebody told me the other day, you put a foxhole right down in here and he's in it, everybody in this organization is going to follow him, and that's what a true leader is. You can have followers, but you need a leader, and he definitely is, and he's been that really since day one. So I think now does that mean that that's going to carry them? No, he's got to be a good football player. He's got to be able to do things on the field, and he does that. He's getting better and better. I think they'll have a good supporting cast around him, but it starts with a guy that's a true leader. And last year was a good indication, Bill, when it was pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. They couldn't be here. Who opened up a football field at his own house and had people coming over and throwing passes and things like that? He is the leader of this team.
All right, and then you look at the domino effect, the way this deal was structured and where he sits as far as the salary cap is concerned. As these negotiations with free agents start now, they've got room to do business right now.
They do. They did a nice job of making this year alone where it's only going to count, I say only, $22 million. But that's a significant drop from last year when you think about 31.4 for the tag. He drops down. Now the salary cap did as well. But I do think that when free agency starts, they're going to be able to do some things. I don't think it'll be a lot, though. I really don't. I don't think that's not their makeup. That's not what they like to do. And this year especially, they don't have a lot of money for that. And one other thing, they didn't do a lot last year. They had some money left over. There was a reason for that because they could roll it over into this year. It was very important for them to do that. So I don't think they're going to be big players in free agency, but maybe enough that if something strikes them, they can do it.
All right, Nick Eatman, we appreciate it. And about that free agency, what might the Cowboys do? We explore that when we come back on the Blitz in just a moment.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
And welcome welcome back to the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Bill Jones with Kyle Youmans. It's time to break down free agency for your Dallas Cowboys. And let's kick things off, Kyle, by taking a look at the offensive free agents to be for the Cowboys. And at the top of the list is the backup quarterback, Andy Dalton. It will be interesting to see what kind of interest he gets from around the league. But you see the list there as you got some offensive linemen who are free agents, the second or the third tight end, however you want to view it, with the Blake Jarwin injury last year, Blake Bell as well. But let's start with Dalton. And what do you think the market might be for Dalton and his chances of coming back as the backup here?
You know, Bill, I actually think it's a little bit higher of a market than it was last year as he was coming out of Cincinnati and then ended up with the Dallas Cowboys. He came here because of the security, because he is from this area, because he was the backup quarterback, and it allowed him an opportunity to take a year to really kind of restructure his game. Now, little did he know he would end up being the starting quarterback and playing the majority of the snaps in 2020. So I think his value is going to be higher. Now, does he want to come back into a backup role? Because you just saw the kind of money that was dished out to Dak Prescott. He will not be the starter, and he could be a starter elsewhere. So if the Cowboys can save a little bit of cash, and maybe if Andy Dalton can find a starting job, or at least one where he can compete for a starting job elsewhere, I don't necessarily expect him to come back here in 2021.
All right, now let's turn our attention to the defensive side of the ball. All Cowboys fans are interested in the defensive side of the ball, upgrading this defense. And you've got a ton of free agents in the secondary, starting with Xavier Woods, Chido Awuzie, and Jordan Lewis. At the linebacker, you got the veterans with Sean Lee and Joe Thomas. And up front, Aldon Smith, Tyrone Crawford topping that list. How do you view things as far as free agency on defense?
Well, most Cowboys fans would probably look at this list and say, I don't really want to bring any of these guys back because of how poor they played in 2020. But I think there's definitely bargains to be had on that side of the football. You look at the three guys in the secondary, they are the storyline. Woods, Awuzie, and Lewis. Who out of those three deserves to be back, and who out of those three do you think might count less against the salary cap? I think that's something that you could potentially look at. Chido Awuzie, his market value is ultimately around $8 million. I think that's too high. I think it would be more likely to see a Jordan Lewis come back. But Xavier Woods, he might get some money on the open market as well as a veteran starting free safety. I think that's something that you could look at for the secondary, is bring back one or two of those guys. Then on the defensive line, Aldon Smith, I think he deserves a chance to come back. And then in the front seven, Joe Thomas as well. Both of those guys filled in, not necessarily as starters, but as reserves through the majority of the season. Put enough out on film to where they could give a little bit back to that defense if they needed to. Not a ton of pressure on those guys, but with the holes that you have at edge rusher and the holes that you have at linebacker, I think they would be easy signings for the Cowboys and not necessarily count too much against the checkbook.
And the thing that we don't know about where the Cowboys are headed as far as their defense goes is we haven't had an opportunity to really sit down with a new defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, and get his thoughts on these players and what he. Now, we can look at his track record, though. We can look at the defense that he coordinated in Seattle in 2013 and 2014, what his priorities were there, and also even at Atlanta. Of course, remember, it was a Falcons team that went to a Super Bowl several years ago. When you prioritize needs on this defense, you take the three levels of the defense, defensive line, linebackers, secondary, where do you start? What's your number one priority?
It would be secondary for sure. That's where you start free agency-wise to go and try and find some of those guys. And then sneaky number two, I think it's linebacker, because there's been so much health concerns around that linebacker group with Leighton Vander Esch last year missing multiple games. Jalen Smith, is he going to get back to the 2018 version we saw of Jalen Smith? I'm not so sure that we'll see that again in a Cowboys uniform. Maybe Dan Quinn can help a little bit of that out, but ultimately I think those are the top two priorities.
Maybe the draft can help it out as well. Dave Hellman joins us next. We break down some draft prospects. How about this guy, Mr. Barmore? Could he be a Cowboy?
Welcome back to the Blitz, the Dallas Cowboys report, as we close in on 40 days till the NFL draft at the end of April, and still plenty to talk about for the Dallas Cowboys as they have plenty of needs that need to be addressed, and one of those needs is defensive tackle. And is this a class to do just that. We bring in David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com draft expert. Dave, of course, defensive tackle, not the strongest position in this draft class, but it's still one that the Cowboys might need to consider.
Yeah, I can't help, Kyle, but, it's a little bit ironic if you think back to last year's draft. There were two studs in that class, Derek Brown out of Auburn and Javon Kinlaw. Obviously, the Cowboys picked 17th, and it was like, well, neither one of these guys is going to be there for them. And now the Cowboys picked 10th overall, and there isn't really a stud defensive tackle that fits into that draft range. The closest you could probably come is a guy that I know you and I like a lot by the name of Christian Barmore out of Alabama, who absolutely destroyed the college football playoff this past season. If the Cowboys aren't willing to draft that guy at 10, and I don't think they would be, now you're talking about finding value on day 2 and maybe even day 3 of the draft.
Is that where that sweet spot lies with defensive tackle this year? Because the last 2 drafts, they've spent a second-round pick on Tristan Hill, and then last year it was Neville Gallimore in the 3rd round. But are the Cowboys in a position to put a premium pick back at defensive tackle?
I'm glad you brought up Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore, and I don't want to get it twisted. Defensive tackle is a need for this team. It was a position that struggled last year. But I wonder when it's all said and done if the Cowboys will be positioned to where they want to yet again spend a pick like that on a defensive tackle. You mentioned Tristan Hill. He's coming off an ACL injury. He should be back in time for the season. Neville Gallimore really seemed to come on as the second half of the season got underway. And then you think about free agent acquisitions. It's easy to imagine Antoine Woods coming back. Maybe you sign another veteran guy, not necessarily Gerald McCoy, but a guy like him. And all of a sudden, maybe now you're talking about this being a day 3 situation. There are definitely players you can find on day 2. A guy that I like a lot, assuming he's there for you at 44, is Levion Zarinke, actually a local prospect from here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who went to Washington, opted out of the season, but an incredibly athletic, disruptive guy. But like I said, with what you have coming back, I wonder if this is something that the Cowboys wait to address until rounds 4 or 5, maybe even 6 this year.
And that's a good point you just brought up there, because if the Cowboys elect to wait, they'd have to take care of some other needs before defensive tackle. Where would you put this position if you had to rank them in terms of what the Cowboys could be looking for the draft?
If you're asking me, like top draft needs, obviously secondary is top for me. You don't have any cornerbacks. You don't really have any safeties, proven safeties right now. This is a spot where I'd love to get a first, maybe even your 2nd round pick as well in the secondary. And then for me, linebacker scares me a good bit more than defensive tackle at this point, to be honest with you, just because you don't know what the future holds for Leighton Vander Esch. Obviously, you might have a decision to make on Jalen Smith at some point in the future. So, yes, I think a defensive tackle is something that they will add, but I just don't know how high it is on their priority list, given that they've already invested 2nd and 3rd round picks here in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it could be 3 straight years where they look at premium day 1 or day 2 picks to put at defensive tackle. He's David Hellman. You can catch him on the draft show throughout the weekend, plenty of the time on DallasCowboys.com. Could the Dallas Cowboys potentially use a comp pick on a defensive tackle? We'll outline what extra picks the Cowboys have when we return and wrap things up on the Blitz.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz was brought to you by AT&T, the official 5G innovation partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Tour AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Tours are available daily. For details, visit attstadium.com/tours.
Final minute or so of the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. And hey, here was some more good news for the Cowboys this past week. The draft pick total is now up to 10 for this draft, as 4 compensatory draft picks coming the Cowboys' way. In fact, how about that one? Pick number 99 got another top 100 draft pick. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, 4 top 100 draft picks. I'll take any day of the week. And plus, it's just options for the Cowboys, because you could package those picks together. You could go up, maybe even get a 5th top 100 pick. You could start trying to maneuver your way around this draft a little bit. That is deep in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds. And that's where the Cowboys could maybe get a couple players that, like we talked about on the defense, could fill some holes later on.
That's exactly right. Hey, I forgot this off the top. This is Selection Sunday, and you've seen your bracket now, Kyle. And so I got to ask you, who you got running the table? Who's going to, in Indianapolis this year, the Final Four, who's going to win it all?
So I grew up in Waco, so I'm going to pick those Baylor Bears. But watch out for North Carolina. They're on a run. They could make some noise in the bracket, even after not the best year.
I had a feeling you'd pick the Baylor Bears. All right, my bracket, I will rip it up next week here on The Blitz.